Hello and welcome to an awful lot of running, a Doctor Who podcast.
Woo! It's good to be with you too. Especially out here on this lovely Welsh coastline.
Just look at it.
The walks and the water, it never ends.
The war between the land and the sea.
See, friends?
Jack, no.
So, who have we got in the audience section tonight?
Oh, usual suspects. Ewan, Joshua, the fun lot. There was a TB something, but we'll skip over that one. Terrifying one he is. Most dangerous fan writer in history. He wrote Ex Libris. Led us to absolute mayhem. Wait, have you caught up on his work yet?
Mostly.
Oh, spoilers. Get us said anything.
Good shout.
Oh, no. What is this? Some sort of circle. Someone made this. I'm sorry. Really, really sorry.
That looks like the aforementioned audience section, doesn't it?
Emails and Twitter responses printed on little scrolls.
Let's check a few to make sure they're okay.
Agreed. I miss you. That's all this says. Well, that's an odd one.
White in peace. Mad Beech? Horrid Mad Beech.
Isn't it supposed to say Mad Jack?
I think it's because you're called Jack, so we have to change the script.
Talking of, where's Star?
Star?
She's probably just headed off to the gaslighting pub. We'll meet her down there.
I'm not too sure, but alright.
So, that's a bit weird. I don't know where Star's quite gone there, but I mean, anyway, getting to the episode. My name is Jack. I am your usual podcaster co-host. Joining me, as always, is published author Robin Foale.
It is indeed myself, you, and for some reason, Star who's disappeared on us. But I guess that's not too bad a situation because, Jack, we actually saw this episode together, didn't we, at the recent MCM Comic Con?
Yeah, it's funny. This is the first episode, like the first new episode of Doctor Who that we have ever experienced together at the same time, like
It's
in the same place. It's funny, you know, we're talking about 73 yards here, and it's very bizarre how we saw it in the same way that it's bizarre how I saw Space Babies for the first time. Because we were a couple hours off finishing our panel at MCM Comic Con, and then went to a special showing and panel on the main stage and saw it on a massive screen with hundreds of other fans. When, I mean, that it's full transparency, the episode had been out for about almost 24 hours by that point. It was getting on close to, you know, we had somehow managed to stay completely spoiler free in that
I'm
time.
so glad that was the case.
I'm so glad as well. Yeah,
oh.
it was tough as well though, because we had people coming up to us and us trying to be like, we haven't seen it. Please don't tell us anything. But then people giving us like, you know, telling us whether they liked it or they didn't like it, and it was like, I find that stuff very difficult because I find that if someone tells me that they like it or they don't like it, even that in my mind can kind of be a spoiler. Because even though I should be making up my own opinion on it, it's there in the back of my head, you know. So it was very difficult to sort of shut that off.
I completely agree with you there, Jack. It's the same with like Rotten Tomatoes when there's a new movie coming out that you've already decided that you're going to go and see. It's something you've been looking forward to for months or something. And then suddenly on Facebook or on Twitter, it would just be like, oh, the early reviews are in and it's terrible. And you're like, well, shit, now that I've got this idea that it's terrible, that's going to affect how I see it.
I know, man. You were burned by Madam Web, weren't you? You were so burned there. You were like, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be so good.
Oh, Jack, I don't think Madam Web had any
Sorry,
chance.
sorry, I forgot. You're a big Morbius fan, so it was
Oh,
you wanted to morb. You wanted
oh.
to morb.
me and my me and my fiance went to see Morbius thinking this will be good, right? You know, it's a vampire. It's like, no, the
Matt,
saving
Matt
grace for
Smith
that.
was good.
Oh,
Matt
that
Smith
was the
was the only
saving
good thing.
grace. Yeah. we now
Have
have
sex, have sex.
we now have shirtless Matt Smith and Shooty Gatwa shaking his very fine booty, which again the fiance keeps pointing out. And so it's like, yep, just having all those little ticks right there.
Well, not much shaking of his booty in this episode, actually, Robin,
No.
because he's barely in it. I mean, it's already weird. You know, it started on the big screen at MCM, and they come out of the TARDIS, the Doctor and Ruby, and it came up with the episode title, and then the starring Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa, and I was like, "Whoa, hold up a second, where's the intro?" And then,
I
of
know,
course, it just
right?
carries on to getting weirder and weirder as the episode goes on.
It was really surreal because the number of times that's happened in Doctor Who, you can count on maybe one hand.
Mm.
And when that happened, a part of me was fearing like, oh no, we haven't got like the early cut of this or something where they've forgotten to introduce this, like add that sort of thing. But no, it was intentional. And I think honestly, I think that was for the better. Like you could have still
I
have
do.
kept a lot of the tension with it, but there's something about removing it which already puts a sense of unease in us, the audience, who we're so used to that. We're so used to us around the dinner table, around the TV, doing the you know, getting hyped.
Mm.
Everyone does the noises, you know, everyone's the orchestra. And so for that to not happen, you're like, oh, something's gonna go down. And like we no context for what this episode was gonna be. We just knew that it was gonna be like Welsh like folk horror. And it was like, okay, totally down. And just sat there in this big theater with so many seats. We got really good seats as well, like right in the middle. Like, and we each had our own little popcorn buckets, which were all Hardises, which was so cute and
Yeah,
amazing.
it's so cool because that was what the BBC put on for the real London premiere, not the one that I went to. I mean I got a free beer. That was nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
You know, thank you back to Cymru, but you know, come on BBC. But at MCM, it was lovely to have that, and then obviously there was a Q&A afterwards as well. I'm sure we can bring some stuff up there, you know, in terms of some things, and maybe not so much because I don't know how great some of the questions were, but that's another conversation entirely, which we're gonna move right on from right now into our next section right now. Yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of removing the title sequence. It just did create this sense, this straight away, this unease, this notion of what's going on here. I thought I was about to watch Doctor Who Adventure, and unease, dread, tension are definitely some adjectives I would use to describe this episode. My goodness.
What's really fascinating as well is that this is the first episode that they recorded for this season, and it's got like hardly any Doctor.
Mhm.
Like they have this brand new companion who is starting off the journey with Doctor Who, and it's like, oh, actually, here you go, an entire episode for you. Like, oh, okay, and like saying it now, Millie, phenomenal, absolutely
Oh my
phenomenal
god.
in
I've
this
I've said it
whole
I've
episode.
I've said it everywhere post this, but she ate this. She
Mm,
give her every award, just
damn straight.
every television award, because oh my god, because just the talent on offer here, that just not just the journey she goes on, sort of emotionally, but physically in this as well, is so it's. I'm trying to think of a similar story with another companion. Obviously, the episode we can look to like this is Turn Left, isn't it? But in almost a way that is funny though, because does so much about this episode straight away. I'm going to say now it is left to interpretation, and that has caused a lot of division online, because I think some people, for no bad reason, sometimes some people want everything laid up and given to them, and very little margin of interpretation or understanding being left towards you. Basically, some people don't like to think about the TV that they watch; they just want to watch it. And again, that's absolutely fair. That's absolutely valid. Other people will quite happily have that, that inner depth and want that, and to think about what they're watching. And that's why I think, as podcasters that constantly now look at these episodes and unpick them, I think maybe that's why we loved it so much, because there is so much there for interpretation and we don't know an awful lot. But my God, something I do know is if Millie Gibson has no fans, I'm dead. Because sweet Jesus, she was amazing. Sweet Jesus, she was amazing.
She gave everything in this performance, and she was 19 when she filmed this, which is crazy. Like, I wish I could be that talented. Like,
I wish I could be that talented now. Like, my God,
no,
she is more talent in her little finger than I have ever had. And like we've both done acting. We've both been on stage and we've both done different things. And my God, if I could have been as good as she was at 19, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast, would I? I'd be doing something else.
Well, no, that's very true. But God, no, but it was a great experience. It was like the little popcorn buckets, being there with everyone. I have to say this now. I already said it to them when we were there, but I was sat next to James, aka the queer doctor.
Yeah,
my first time
James
meeting them. James, it's absolutely lovely. If you're listening to this, thank you for being just a really lovely, just human being, and just for like chatting away with me throughout this whole time. But I felt so bad because I was watching this and I was constantly like, like gasping, and I could see him just sort of turn towards me and like, oh no, I'm giving a really bad impression, and I'm spoiling his experience. And then actually he turned to me afterwards and he was like, no, I was doing the same. And I was like, oh thank God. I
was there were parts in it where I was weeping. I was just crying so hard. And I think it's jumping way ahead in the episode. The first time that happened is when Ruby looks and sees Carla going past in the taxi. That utterly destroyed me. And of course, that scene and the scene that followed it just continued to when Ruby was banging on the door and Carla was like, go away, Ruby, and like, so I'm not your. I can't even, because it's so. And it's what we'll talk about later on, but it was so. Well, no, I'm just gonna say it now. Okay, so
yeah.
When Carla says like, Ruby's like, you're still my mum, and she's like, I'm not though, am I? Not even your real mother wanted you.
Oh, there was like there was an audible gasp in the audience when that happened. Just everyone like, just.
Well, I will say this is the third episode we've seen Carla in. Obviously, we only saw her in Space Babies quickly, but it's the second time that Russell's made her a nasty. I don't like it. I like nice Carla. I like. Oh my God, Cherry. Cherry has one of the best lines in the episode. We'll come back to that because I cannot stand Cherry Sunday enough. I cannot stand her enough, between Space Babies. What the blinking flip? Oh, I just love her so much. She's so brilliant, But okay, let's tread back to the very start of the episode, though, shall we? I'm sure we'll skim through bits and bobs, but Second week in a row, the Doctor steps on something that causes a load of mischief. Let's face it. And I think it's funny what in episode 1 he steps on the church on Ruby Road, doesn't he? Because he goes to the top of it, so he steps on that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
In episode 2, he steps on some of the snot, so he steps on a space baby. Okay.
Oh, he also steps on a butterfly.
Yeah, he steps on a butterfly. Well, no, Ruby does, but still, yeah. Ruby steps on a butterfly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry. That was me.
Episode 2, Devil's Cord, he steps on the beat because, it's the Devil's Cord.
Yeah.
Episode 3, he steps on a landmine. This episode, he steps on a fairy circle, possibly causing some sort of reaction and consequence from the Fae and the fairies of Wales and things like that, which obviously are, there's already a history of that in terms of Doctor Who when we look at torture. But let's face it, we're best forgetting that episode, aren't we? Because it was not a very good torture episode, but still. But then it just leads me to think that when we get to Rogue, is he going to step on Jonathan Groff?
Oh, Jack, don't say that because some fans definitely want that, and that's their king. But
I have
not
to be
shaming
fair.
that.
I have to be fair. I stole that. I have to be fair right now. I stole that joke from Mr. TARDIS. He put it up on Twitter, and I had to say it here. So up front, but it was too good. It was too good not for me to throw in. Yeah. So yeah, and
oh my god.
So the Doctor does that, and it's this beautiful, we're in Wales, and looking at, and straight away, I'm looking at it's the Tenby coastline. I live in Wales. I adore Wales, living in Wales, and I love everything about it. And I was like, yes, to have an episode, obviously Doctor Who is filmed in Wales and some of it in Bristol as well, but to have it, set in Wales and have like it described as a Welsh folklore or folk horror, this was the one I was most excited for.
And
then within the first 2 minutes of the episode, the Doctor is gone. And Ruby looks up, and there's this woman standing, as we know, 73 yards away from her. And it's already a creepy enough image. But then as Ruby starts walking away, it just adds to the eeriness that we keep seeing her 73 yards away from her, and she changes position depending on, like, there's one bit where Ruby sort of is like, obviously talk to her and is like, okay, it's all right now. And then she moves and thinks she can't see her. And then she looks and suddenly she's, far and far away from where she originally was.
It's really interesting, like, this episode, because this is an episode where I feel like it just kept you guessing the entire time because you never really knew what it was going to be. Because again, this is kind of going to be jumping a little bit, but this episode has so many different locations, so many different scenarios, because when she goes to the pub, you think, oh, the whole of the episode is going to now take place in the pub because on Twitter they showcased the pub sign and everything.
Yeah, think as soon as that happens, you think, okay, this is going to be the basis for an episode. Maybe it's going to turn into a base into Siege where it's the pub. Maybe it's going to be that Ruby has to work out what's wrong and work with the inhabitants of this Welsh village, But nope,
that doesn't happen. And then she goes home. And you're like, okay, sure, maybe something now is going to happen. Maybe now that we get unit involved, but again, no. And
Well, exactly. And that's the fact then with the unit part, we get told it's literally a year after all this started.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what? We've had a time jump? And then after the unit part, we get more and more it was... I thought it was already bad enough. Like, we had a time jump, and then we cut to Ruby with longer hair. And obviously there's a Christmas tree in her house, and she's got a drink there, and she's looking out the window, and there's a birthday card there saying happy 25th birthday. And I was like, wait, sorry, what? And I thought, okay, so this is going to be it. And then we're going to, figure something out there. But no, then 30, and then 40. and it's a it's an episode which is I have not stopped thinking about this episode since we finished it.
So this is where I wanted to bring this up actually, because I know when we first talked about Space Babies, we brought up the fact that because you had that experience, seeing it early, having that kind of cinema-esque experience, you were thinking, oh, would that sort of affect your view of it and the like? And the thing is, even though we've both had this experience of having this almost cinema-like experience at MCM, surrounded with friends and fans, actually, we're still thinking about the episode. It wasn't like a, wow, that was really great, and now we're kind of going on to do other things. No, we've kept thinking about this episode. We keep thinking about new aspects of it and just what really worked with it. And I think that's a sign of a great episode when it keeps you
Absolutely.
thinking. It's not like, oh, that was fun. Next thing. It's like, no, it stays with you. And it has a very kind of short, not short, well, yeah, short film, I guess, because of the length of the episode, but also has that kind of self-contained movie quality to it. A lot of people
Yeah.
comparing this to like a Black Mirror type episode.
Yes, yeah, and that's a big thing that Joel Collinson, who's executive producer, said in the Q&A after the
Yes.
actual episode. He said that they were looking at this series as if it being like an anthology, which Doctor Who is, and I was like, yeah, I suppose. I guess that is kind of a way to think of it. And I was like, this is a very interesting way. Like I look on some of my favorite programs the past few years. Love, Death and Robot anthology series, Black Mirror, as you said, anthology. Star Wars Visions, What If, all like anthologies, which then obviously, What If obviously comes together a bit like a Doctor Who would, where we have anthology stories. And it's what I've been wanting as well with like the whole Who-niverse. I've wanted like an anthology series. I guess I didn't think to look at the main series itself and go, oh, that's the anthology. But as soon as you said it, I was like, huh. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess the first episode is kind of like this, like weird, funny comedy in space / alien thing. Episode 2 is like a weird musical. Episode 3 is a bottle episode, and then this one is like an existential horror dread thing. But then it's just made me really excited to see what happens in the rest of the series here, and I'm just I'm really struggling, because I'm trying to tie down little things to talk about here, but there's just so much. There's so many scenes which I love, on the cliff top where we got to next. Obviously, we eventually see Ruby trying to get to the village, and she runs into There's Always a Susan Twist, as I like to call her, who then is playing a hiker and goes up to the woman, and that's the first time we see this power or persuasion of the woman, where whoever goes up to her and speaks to her or hears her talking turns, and it's so eerie the way they all do it, and how all their responses are different, and that they all, they turn, they look at Ruby, and then run for the hill, for high heaven. The only one that doesn't is Kate, Kate Lethbridge Stewart from Unit. But her, and again, that's something we can talk about later as well, is Gemma Redgrave, because she was at the panel as well. Like her performance to it as well was so, oh my god, it's scary. And I think it really speaks to, personally, Ruby's biggest fear, the idea of this episode. I think that's what it ties into, is Ruby's biggest fear of being abandoned again, being left, like her birth mother left her at Ruby Road. It's the idea that, number one, first of all, her best friend gone, doesn't come back. Then people that tried to help her, gone. Her mum, gone, and cuts her out of her life. Like literally cuts her out of her life, full stop.
That's the working theory at the moment, isn't it? And I think it's the strongest one, because it would also explain why we don't hear what this old woman is saying. And we don't need to. If it is just, it's the fear itself manifesting in the people who are in proximity to this person, they absorb the very thing that she's afraid of and they mimic it. Like that is gut wrenching, that is. And
Yeah.
again, not only is it so gut wrenching and so powerful, but what I really love about this series is the fact that, again, it's another episode that's directly tying in with the companion. Like, this is directly tying into their fears. Um, Whereas other episodes we've tied into their love of music, their connection to children. Um, and I think that's just so clever when we have all these little connections. Not only is she
Mhm.
clearly connecting things with the snow and the like, but it's also just the stories themselves connecting to her with the narratives being interweaved into her personality, her background and interests. I just find that
Yes.
so clever. So, so clever.
See, this is where I suppose that, you know what, let's just get into something here. Let's just get straight into a theory. Okay.
Okay.
My idea of my interpretation. I've seen a few things of this. I've seen a few ideas of like it being the idea of it being like the fairy circle itself, which sets the whole thing off. That the Doctor breaks it, and then Ruby has to live her entire life, sort of like as penance for what happened here, and only when she, you know, prevents Roger Ap Aberlin from Roger Ap William from, you know, basically starting off a nuclear holocaust. Which, funny, that's the second time we've got a nuclear winter being possibly threatened. You know,
Mm.
because obviously Devil's Called, we went to the future and saw what happened, and so there's one idea of that. I think it's a little closer to home. I think this all happened because of Ruby's own power. Now, obviously, there's some connection to her regarding the one who waits. You know, we know that from the way Maestro was like, there's a hidden song in her soul. There's something of the old one about her. This makes no sense. And yeah, there's definitely been an idea that Ruby is connecting things or has some sort of power. I think that especially the way that it's so strange how, you know, the Doctor is talking about being on Wales, and oh, there's one bad thing about Wales, the worst prime minister Britain ever had, you know, Roger Ap William, and always brought the world to nuclear war, and then that's what she has to prevent later on. That's what she waits 21 years to be able to be able to prevent, because she's 40 by the time she's working for him and doing all that.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
mean,
which by the way, I need to know whatever Ruby's skincare routine is, because I'm 30 and I look way worse than she did at 40. I feel like I did look way worse than she did at 80, and that was a different actress. So
oh my God. I was literally about to say, like, damn, I'll be lucky if I look that good at 40. I've already got the silver hair. Oh no. But no, it's really fascinating, this idea of what you're bringing up, and I definitely think there's something like we also have to know what's up with like Trist's character. Like, are they connected to her in some way? Is it her power has influenced them, or are they around
mm,
because they're following her influence? Like, it's interesting because in this episode, oh no, I'm doing it now. I'm saying interest in every other phrase. Start the drinking game again.
no,
Um,
no, no. Star said it. Drink responsibly.
oh, okay. Uh, I had strawberry daiquiris at the wedding as well. Come on, Jack.
God damn it, Robert. But no, I think it is interesting, because we really are again and again and again seeing that supernatural element. And even Kate says, you know, in that part, and whether it's an aborted timeline or a different timeline, or weirdly, you know, that the companion, you know, the offshoot. And I think actually Kate says that whatever happens, you know, this timeline has been created because of that event that happened, you know, with you, which is very interesting to talk I keep saying it there again. God damn it, you've put it in my head now, which is really weird. But then again, Kate's as well. Unit looks into the the unexplained and the supernatural. Funny enough, it's going more that way recently, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is more Fallout from Wild Blue Yonder, isn't it? This is more toy maker, BS-ery,
It is, and what I'll quickly say now before I forget it, is with Twist, is the fact that Ruby actually recognizes her, because out of all of her cameos, her face on the ambulance was definitely the most like in your face, like she's there. Yes.
Detected.
And I love the fact that she recognizes them, but there's clearly something going on, like, and it's very much like the old woman where it's like people can see her, but they don't want to, very much like the TARDIS has. And I find that very interesting that all these different characters are getting these things, and you're just thinking, okay, what's up? Is this magical? Is this tech? Is this alien? Like, and that's the thing. We're now getting like magic and supernatural in Doctor Who, which we've had little bits of, but whenever we've had those things, it's like, oh, we have werewolves, but they're more like aliens, or we've had vampires, but they're aliens, and it's like,
Yes.
now that we're actually like, no, we're getting goblins, just they're goblins. I was like, oh, cool, all right. Like they may have like a spaceship.
We are getting the essence of music itself as a villain. It's strange, and it's so exciting to see what's going to come next in terms of not just this series, but is that supernatural going to carry on into series 2, or does it become more hard sci-fi again? And I think a lot of people as well are sort of, certainly on Twitter, some people are loving the fantasy elephant, fantasy elephant.
Elephants, yeah.
There are elephants, Mr. Frodo. There are elephants.
I don't think we've had elephants yet in the series of Doctor Who, but
some people are liking the fantasy elements. Some people are being like, no, I want it to be more hard sci-fi again. But again, children, this is when I get out my textbook and I say, okay, class, Doctor Who 101. Here is your Doctor Who. It is a prism. I shine a light through it, which is the story. Out of that Doctor Who comes off all these different elements. Right now, we're looking at the more fantastical stuff. It's just how it is, and Doctor Who has always lent itself to different genres. And what I really love about this episode is it is doing something different. It is changing up the formula. It is being experimental. It is not being afraid to change and do something different, which is, as I said a million times, if I was on the show, I would have at least one episode every year, which was my like, oh, let's just go crazy. Let's do something weird. Let's do a black and white episode. Let's do a silent episode. Let's do a episode filmed in the style of classic Who. That's all the sort of stuff that I would do. And this, in the same sort of sense, just it felt so cinematic. Even the way it was shot felt so uniquely different to any other episode of Doctor Who before, because so much of it we really just see Ruby's point of view. It's Ruby's story completely, and Millie sells it, and it's just phenomenal, isn't it? If I can skip past the hilltops part to probably one of my favorite scenes in the episode, which is Ruby in the pub with a bunch of Welsh people, which was so true to real life, and also just Russell totally being like, this is the stereotype of a weird little Welsh village on the edge of nowhere, and that they're all crazy or they're all kooky, and that the Welsh are away with the fairies or spooky, and it's like, oh, it's so, because it sets the tension so well, the way they talk about things, and there's the little jokes of them basically taking the neck out of Ruby with Ruby like, oh, can I pay for a room with my phone, and we'll be like, what? And she's like, with my phone, and she puts down the card reader.
all of them absolutely gaslight her, and it's
Yeah.
just like
They do.
that
They so
tension.
gaslight. They gaslight her. And the thing is, as well, it's not the first time. It's so obviously something they do with travelers that come past here. And like
Mm.
it's such a fantastic ensemble cast in that bit there. It really, really is. And then just the bit where it's the knock, 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 and it's Mad Jack, is going to be coming through the door. And I made the joke after him saying, like, I'm Mayor Jack. I'm gonna come get I'm Mayor Jack. Which, but then and it's just a guy delivering some
Pasties, yeah.
pasties. Yeah.
I was like, it had to be pasties. It absolutely had to be, which I love. And
Yeah.
I had to talk to after this, being like, Jack, is this what it's like being in Wales, where you just get gaslighted if you're an outsider?
And no, it's not. However, it ties into the long-standing stereotypes that the English have for the Welsh, which is, very, very powerful what they talk about there as well. Like, they say, like, there's great power in this land. This land is steeped in blood, and all that there. And it's so interesting that that's there. And I think it does tie to something there. And I think it just adds to this sort of, whether it's a red herring of like, these creatures or this spirit of Wales, doing something to Ruby, I don't know. But then there's such beautiful imagery. Like, when Ruby sits down and she moves her hair and it changes to the next day. And the woman at the pub comes and gives her some spare clothes, and she goes and sits down by the TARDIS, the woman right behind her again, and she goes to her hair again, and she cuts to the next day again, her in the pub. And then there's a few moments like that where you just see like it's a transition from shot to shot, but it's so beautifully done. There's another one later on when Ruby goes into the Albion office and says, she stood there, she's got her arms folded, and it's the meme that everyone's done, the politics,
Yeah.
meme that everyone's like, especially the general election coming up. And she's like, I'll even hold the coats. And it cuts to in the same, like her in the same position, but face just like dead, holding the coats. And this is just a wonderful episode. It really, really is.
Well, all the stuff in the pub as well is great, because this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, it keeps you guessing the entire episode. A usual episode of Doctor Who, it's like, oh, we're trapped in a spaceship. We've got 42 hours to solve this problem or we're going to die. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. We know the exact plot of this episode. In this, she goes to a pub. There's that tension building up. There's this word of Mad Jack, and you think, okay, we've got a name for this thing. This is Mad Jack. Like, the rain is falling. You get the knock at the door. And then it continues to keep you guessing. Like, it sets up these characters who are all really interesting. Like, the old lady having her drink, and like just so good. They could have had them being like the main characters of the story, but they're not. But they feel so fleshed out in just that one scene.
Absolutely, yeah. And like, and even the bit where you cut to Ruby like on the train going home, and she looks out the window and she keeps seeing the woman popping up.
Yeah.
It reminded me. It's so reminding me of. Have you ever seen the horror movie It Follows, Robin?
I haven't seen it, but I know all about it, and that's what I immediately thought of when watching this. And I think that was one of my first big audible gasps, is when she's on the train looking out and seeing it, and it's just like, oh shit, it's literally following.
It's a really scary episode. And even when Ruby makes her peace with this woman, and she's looking out her window and raising a glass to her, and one of my favorite bits in the episode is when she's on a date with this guy that, he's like, you're so distant, you're constantly looking away, like even in bed.
Yeah.
which is like, oh wow, we're getting a hanky panky reference, proper, other than just a bit of a love life, which is interesting, funny. And then she sees Roger Ap William on the TV, and she's like, oh, that's why I've got you. And she walks out the episode teaser and she goes, come on then, You know, I love it. Oh, she has the great line to the guy being like, you know, yeah, no, you're right. It's all my fault, except for the bed thing. No, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's on you. Like,
There's what I really love about this episode is not only does it keep you guessing throughout, but what makes great horror is when the cast are intelligent. It's when you don't have a dumb cast, and she does all the right steps. Like she talks about how she measures the distance, how she tries to get hold of the best camera possible to be able to see their face so as to try and discern who they are. They go to unit, which was a really smart decision. And
yeah.
that whole scene as well, where Kate is like, no, 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 it's okay. We've got
It's
everyone
so,
here. They've got
yeah,
psychic training. They've got all these types of things. And the only thing that like messes up the whole operation is just because she has to stay in contact with the soldiers. It's the
yeah,
earpiece.
exactly,
And if she
yeah.
just didn't have that,
And
it's just like,
it's so amazing because the way she comes into shot, Kate, for the first time, is the same way she leaves. Like when she has the moment when she hears
oh,
what the
does
woman's saying.
she?
It's like she comes into the shot and then it's the camera goes on her face again, the same shot when she turns and has that cold look to Ruby, which again, it's so beautifully done. And Gemma Redgrave, who I love Gemma Redgrave, I think Kate is a great character. I want to see more of Kate in the show, and it's great that we're going to see more of her again. It's so interesting to see, you know, because we had a big turn with her in The Giggle, obviously, where she had to let go and say some horrible things. In this, we see coldness come out of her instead. Instead of mad, raving, horrible Kate, we saw just a coldness to her, which was, and again, Gemma Redgrave really spoke about it beautifully. She said, you see her come in and you see her, you know, it's almost like she's trying to mother Ruby. Like it's so
Mm.
beautiful the way she's talking about her. You know, don't worry, we'll look after you. There's a place for us, you know. And Ruby's like, oh, I was barely with him. She's like, no, no, you know, I adore the doctor, but never tell him that. And it's all this stuff. And she's trying to help her, saying, don't worry, we'll fix this. And then it is like she turns and Gemma Redgrave was like, you know, she had to think about it affects everyone differently. And she was like, it's obviously fear. And how does Kate respond to fear? She goes cold.
Mm.
That's how she deals with it. And it's so, you know, and the host of the Q&A who runs the official Doctor Who podcast, we hate them because they're official. Not really. She did a very good job, bless her. And she asked them, you know, well, what were you thinking that moment? And Kate was like, well, I can't really say what I was thinking of because I can't remember. And I was thinking, to be fair as well, I'm not sure I'd ask that question because it's the actor's process. You know, maybe that's, you know, not something they want to share. But she was like, she just had to imagine that it was the worst thing in the world.
Mm.
And whatever you're being told, it's Ruby's fault that it happened. And it is just that, along with, you know, I was already crying because the scene previous to that was obviously Ruby and all the Ruby and Carla stuff and Ruby outside the flat.
Mm.
The minute, because you see Kate and you think, oh, okay, this is it. We're going to get some resolution here now. Things are going to start going better for Ruby because it's Kate Stewart, it's Unit, establishing Doctor Who. Things are going to get better. Things don't get better at all. They get worse, so much worse.
The moment that turns, you're just like, okay, there's no going back now. It's like you're on your own, and that is gut wrenching. And this again, this is what I love is that she goes through all these processes. She's going through the smart things, but not only is she being really smart, but also this episode is a real testament again to Ruby's character because we get the line of her being like, "I don't dare get on a boat. I don't fly." Because I don't be responsible for this woman's death. I feel like it would happen. And I just thought, oh my God, like, despite this woman causing your life to be miserable right now, you're still caring about who they are. And I just think we've seen Ruby like make a noise to distract a monster to save a baby. We've seen her um like take on the doctor like face them face to face and be like, no, I'm not backing off even though you're on a landmine. I'm here to help. And for her to take this stance, be like, no, I'm not doing anything that will harm this woman.
Yeah.
Like that again is just so brilliantly written into a character, and you're just like, yeah, I really loved Ruby as a companion as well as Millie as an actress, and this is just solidifying why they are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go forward again then to all the stuff with Roger at William, which
Mm.
is just goes to prove that politicians are the worst. Like politicians are the worst. I say that as we're what a couple months away now from a general election, Robin, and I am so unenthused about politics at the minute.
Oh my God. It's just like, oh, it doesn't matter who you pick, they're all the same flavors of shit. It's
It's
it's just mm,
friend of the podcast, Jude, put it very beautifully in a TikTok I saw, which is like, isn't it the ultimate monkey's paw this election? Where it's like, yes, we
yeah.
could be we could be rid of the Tories, but at what cost? You know?
Oh, it's just it turns out that the moment you join politics, you just turn into a shitty person.
Yeah, and it's
Case in
really
point,
it's
Mad
so
Jack.
yeah. Case in point, Roger William or Mad Jack, as they call him. You know, and
Mm.
he's got such a soft voice as well, which is so. You know, you can see he is charismatic as well. You can absolutely see that. But then he's absolutely a maniac, willing to and wanting to press the nuclear button. And again, it just goes to speak to Ruby's character that she sees and she imagines this is what she's supposed to do, what she's supposed to fix, but she waits to be absolutely sure before she unleashes the power of this woman on him because she doesn't want to, she wants to be absolutely sure that she has to,
It's a
you know.
real testament again to a character because you think about it, like a lot of characters in fiction, or just if this was a self-contained Black Mirror episode, you'd think maybe a different character would have enough of their life being ruined and would go, no, I'm just going to walk up to Mad Jack and just shank them or get a gun and just shoot them just because it's like, no, I know that this is going to solve it. And there's the fact that she doesn't do that. Yes, she takes her time to make sure, but she doesn't do anything to try and harm him. And
No.
again, that's really like shows how strong her character is, which is just wonderful.
There's that bit, isn't there, in the TV studio where he comes up to her and he's like, "Oh, are you with us?" And she's like, "Yes, I'm Ruby." And he's like, "And what about her over there?" And it's this character called Marty. He's like, "Oh, a boy's name." And he goes up to her. And later on, obviously, we see election night, don't we?
Mm,
And it's obviously some time has passed. And Ruby, I don't think she's aware of what happened with. And I think it's important I say now before we go any further. Trigger warning uh, for things that that are implied here in terms
mm.
of how, but in terms of things between these characters here. So massive trigger warning, please. Skip forward a few minutes and carry on if this is a sensitive subject for you. But there's an implied sexual assault, basically, or implied continued sexual assault between Roger Aquilium and Marty,
Mm.
because Ruby says, and I think Ruby doesn't quite know yet what's potentially happened there, but she says about, I think she's trying to keep her cover where she's like, he's a good man, and Marty goes, he's a monster,
That's
and that's so powerful. And then you see it again later on where they're in Cardiff City Football Stadium. He's coming home. That's what he said. Obviously, he said he grew up in Swansea, but he's coming home to Wales to have a speech and talk about stuff. And he's getting the nuclear codes from Pakistan and stuff. And there's a bit where the aide they're working with says, there's another aide that's like, oh, I'd love to meet him because he greets everyone that he meets still. I'd love to meet him face to face. And the other aide goes, nah, he's prime minister now. He's too big for us. That except for you, Marty. He says you're invited to the party, and you just see Marty's entire body language change. And I think it's been very difficult there, where some people have read it as Ruby allowed this to continue, which is obviously very damning for her character. But I suppose if I'm doing a good faith reading, I would say potentially maybe Ruby didn't know that happened. And then this is directly after the election. So this is the first time she's really been in close contact or been able to actually enact her plan with William, because it is, she has that moment when she's like, I'm sorry, Marty, for what happened. I had to make sure, and it's really, really powerful. And I think it's beautiful as well when you see William turn and see the woman and then do what has, which Ruby's been suffering with the episode, which has been a harrowing and terrible thing. She uses it for good here, and how her reaction to it in that moment is so different to any other time when it happens, because he turns and he runs, and she laughs and Marty laughs as well. And it's so, and I think, I did see a couple people talking about it being like a plot hole that obviously they say the woman has a perception filter around her, and that he shouldn't then notice her that Ruby pointing her out. But they literally just said he greets everyone.
Yeah.
So obviously he would be, looking to, he looks and sees this woman next to him and he goes to greet her and oh, there it is. I think go on.
I think we definitely needed like some way to ease the tension from that, because all those implied things is just horrible. It really truly is. And like to finally have his comeuppance is definitely that kind of fist in the air, like, hell yes, this needed to happen. Like I part of me was kind of like, she's doing all these hand motions. A part of me was like, can we just go really dark and just have her just snap his neck? But no.
Oh damn! Well, she's doing it's some form of BSL, isn't it? I've not actually watched the Unleashed episode for this yet, so I can't speak to that.
I wish I had.
Yeah, but it'd be very interesting to look back and see what that was. Maybe Star, that's the time you can jump in now and tell us what the woman is actually signing in that moment.
Because I was watching this and I knew it was a sign language, because once upon a time I could speak sign language. I had to. I couldn't speak until I was 5 years old. Sadly, I've forgotten the majority of it. But I don't know. Part of me, just because of how awful Mad Jack had been, was just like, can we just go pretty dark and just do that? But no, that was maybe a bit too dark on my thought. But
and it's so funny as well, because that moment then you see Ruby's like, well, that's what you were for. Like, when do you go? And you imagine, okay, well, this is it. This is what she's had to do. It's her penance. Suddenly, boom, 40 years later. And it's like, oh shit. And we see, old Ruby come out, and it's just clicked in my head now, Robin. In this episode, and she talks beautifully. The elderly actress they have play old Ruby, and it is absolutely beautiful in what she does and how she's talking about the Doctor and the TARDIS and living her life and everything. And she says, I suppose my mother's dead now, and I never heard from her again, and didn't find my birth mother. And it's like, oh
yeah.
It's so, and she's not even talking about it in a sad way. She's just like, this was my life. This is what I did. And it's just a testament to what a brilliant character and person Ruby is. And as I was saying, it's just clicked in my head now, Robin. In this episode, Ruby is quite literally the one who waits.
Oh, oh, shit. Okay, that has a lot of implications, and if that turns out to be the one who waits, if we get this character to come back again, that would be really interesting. I mean, this is already a wonderful self-contained episode. I think both of us, after watching this, went to each other and we were like, okay, that battles and fandom question of what is the best self-contained episode, we were both kind of like, this would be really up there as a fantastic choice. But
This, yeah.
just this. But that's really interesting if the one who waits does just turn out to be like Ode Ruby, who again, wonderful actress. That I love that little moment of like the nurse explaining how the light works. It's just like, yeah, I had that back when I was younger. It was
Yes.
like,
Oh, and that, oh my God. Probably one of the scariest moments of the episode is when she
oh
wakes
yeah,
up and the woman, no longer 73 feet, is in the room with her. And it's the back of her head and coming closer and closer. And
that
then
it's full on
suddenly,
horror. It's full
yeah.
on, and it's
And
just like, oh, the
it
kids, the
again,
kids
yeah.
watching this would just be so scared.
Yeah. Again, in my mind, in my theory, in that moment, Ruby's reward is she is sent back through time. I don't think it was always old Ruby, because especially because it's a different actress playing the woman, that's following her.
Mm.
I don't think it was always old Ruby, but I think in her moment of death, as her reward, finally she's able to go back in time and prevent this all from happening, but then hopefully still retaining the good part of that future that Roger William doesn't get to do the bad stuff.
Mm.
But again, I guess that's what the episode is doing. It's leaving it for interpretation for us. And again, the ending is probably something which is the most divisive, because some people are like, oh, it was old Ruby all the time, and oh, it's so stupid. And I literally had a troll the other day, like yesterday, going on at me about how I was wrong for liking the episode. And I was like, bro, you do you. It's fine. You carry on. It is what it is. But it's, so I think it's, yeah. I don't
It's
know.
it
I don't know what else to say, Robin. Please take over for me a second. Go ahead.
No,
Carry on.
so there are a few things in this episode which are left to interpretation. There's things like Mad Jack being like, "No one step on the grass."
I'm a
Wh-
chick.
yes, you are, Jack. Which is they make such a big point about it, and you think, "Oh, is this going to set up a later scene where the grass has something in it that's going to affect people or hurt people or something?" And so the fact that it turns out that it's just her way of getting to him, and you have to think like, why was this? Was this because of just Jack just wanting to be in control and just to have that part of something where he's like, no, tell people not to, or is this a paranoid side of him where he's like, I don't want anyone out in the open who could take a shot at me. Like her having the phone up, it was kind of like why he has the gunmen point their guns at her and being like, no, this seems like a really aggressive act, especially as someone who's about to become prime minister. Um, and there's a fair few of these. There's who laid the fairy circle, and like, is the time
Was there power in the fairy circle, or is it just the
Mm,
suggestion of it which causes Ruby's power to do something? Is it actually the fae? Is it actually the fairies? Is it any number of things? I don't think it's bad to have a Doctor Who episode like that. I think it's interesting and very wonderful to have that,
mm.
and it be left to that interpretation. And maybe even it's not being left to interpretation. Maybe we will have very clear questions or very clear answers by the end of this series. But just what an incredible piece of drama is what I will say. I said after this episode, I think I've got a new episode which I would recommend to newcomers to Doctor Who to watch. And I said, actually, you know what? It's not even to newcomers or newvians. It's an episode I would give to people that haven't watched Doctor Who just to say, here's a 45-minute amazing piece of drama. Enjoy. Because I think there's I feel like there's no prerequisites to this. I felt it's just an episode you could give anyone and go, what do you make of this?
I mean, I was saying in just the last episode we recorded how Boom was an episode you could show your film class and be like, this is how you do a great piece of storytelling. But I also feel like, oh, good news, class. I've got another episode to show you, which does the exact same thing with focusing on another actor. And it's like they both give phenomenal performances in very different ways and very different tones.
Absolutely.
And I think that's great.
Robin, I'm going to say it now. I loved this episode even more than Boom. I loved it even more than Boom. And I still, even after talking about it now, I still can't stop thinking about it. I think this is an episode which is going to be with us a long time. Yes, I know it's very divisive online, but look, I like it more than Boom. I gave Boom a 10 out of 10 last week.
This is the thing. Like, I reckon by the end of this, we'll maybe come back. We'll have our season 1 review roundup where we go back through things, maybe go over things and be like, okay, we now have the hindsight for this reveal. We know who Twist is, etc. Does this make an episode better or worse, etc.? And yeah, like we gave Boom a 10 out of 10. Both of us, we loved the hell out of that episode. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking like, even with some of the unanswered questions to this episode, even with us having a phenomenal experience, which I was thinking, okay, take a back seat. Is this going to affect my opinion of the episode? Do I have an unfair judgment? And actually, no, I don't, because it was just 45 minutes of just wonderful storytelling, keeping me guessing all the time. A great piece of acting. And I was just like, yeah, I honestly think that this is another 10 out of 10 episode for me, which is crazy. 2 back-to-back episodes.
2 back-to-back bangers like that, to that quality. I don't think we've had that. I don't think we've had that quality since, I would probably say, the Dr. Fools / World Enough in Time, which obviously is the other way around. The episode happened, but I don't think we've had episodes that powerful and strong since then, back to back. But yeah, 10 out of 10 from me. And
yeah,
wow.
Yeah,
I suppose, Robin, that might be a good time for us to go over and see what our audience and what our faithful listeners have thought.
Sounds good to me.
It's time for that Space-Time Telegraph. Few nice ones on Twitter time. On Twitter time. I'll do that again.
Come on, grab your friend.
A few nice ones on Twitter. I did ask. Oh, God damn it, Robin. I got to go again. Right. Start. Cut all that, okay? Few nice ones from Twitter. I did ask on the Twitter. I've said Twitter a couple of times there now, but it's fine. I did ask on Twitter for responses, and people can always send them to the An Awful Lot of Running podcast @gmail.com, the podcast email. First one comes from Joshua Carpenter, friend of the show. Probs are Fred. Sorry, guys. No, please. We like having long thoughts to talk about, don't we, Robin? So, sit yourself in, Robin, for this one now. Okay, so Joshua says, I've seesawed a bit over this one. Initially, I watched it within the frame you'd typically imagine a Doctor Who story to exist within. In that way, it felt a bit overcrowded with ideas without full justification for their existence in the same story. But it's so different. I think the point of it is to be viewed as something completely different. This is a story about what we carry with us and how we take whatever we that may be, life lessons or baggage, etc., and apply them into the future to bring about change. When seen with that perspective, I loved it. It's fresh and exciting and challenging, entertaining. Millie Gibson has silenced critics and claims of soap star acting with a tremendous performance. The atmosphere of the whole episode feels so tense and dark. Yeah, I can't sum it up any more than that. That's very well said. Next one comes from another friend of the show, Mad Began at Mad Mania Box 4. They say Lynchian, David Lynch, that is obviously, weird, spooky, genuinely existential. Feels like a Lovecraftian and M.R. James love child, all in a very good way.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, those are some good examples. I like that.
Absolutely. Another one comes from I500, and they just say awful with a sad face. I did say then, oh no, care to elaborate on what didn't work for you, but had no response to that. But you know, also
Hey,
valid.
each to their own.
Absolutely, yeah. Next one comes from a regular contributor, friend of the show again, Ewan the Shadow Master at British Shadow GG. 2 words: thrilling, tense. But also, what a great way of selling Ruby and Millie Gibson with her very own episode. I was hooked already, but Millie comes in with a powerhouse of a performance in an episode full of intrigue, ambiguity, and uncomfortability in a delightful way. Which is, yeah, I couldn't put that any better myself, which was very well said, Ewan. Good on you, my goodness. Next one is from the email, comes from another regular contributor, good old Thomas Beech here. Always know we're going to be in for a good email when it comes to Thomas. Always look forward to this one, I'm not going to lie. Okay. Hello, Jack and Robin. I'm back once again to share some thoughts on the halfway point of the new series. Yeah, Robin, I didn't think about it. We're 4 episodes into an 8-episode series now. We're halfway through.
Oh, I don't want it to end. I really don't want it to end.
Here we go. So right off the bat, this was something special. Having no title sequence had me intrigued. Just the ominous 73 yards by Russell T Davies appear on screen was actually eerie. I kind of wish the titles for each of the episodes appeared like this in the series so far. That's valid, yeah. Then we're met with frankly beautiful cinematography, a wide vista of cliffs and greenery. Seeing this in the HDR high dynamic range on the BBC iPlayer was such a treat. And of course, Murray's soundtrack for this episode was nothing short of extraordinary. Literal chills all the way through, along with the bittersweet, melancholic chords. I'm hoping we get reprises of these tracks later in the series, or we get the chance to hear them live at the proms in August. It's very true, actually. We didn't bring up Murray Gold's score on this. It's so understated, which is very unlike him for the series, particularly in RTD1. You know, we'd hear a bombastic, beautiful score all the time. But with this, it was so understated, and it just added to the eeriness. Okay. Technical stuff out the way, the storyline of this episode gripped me immensely. The premise of the story had me interested since the initial title reveal, Folk Tale Urban Legends, always scratched a creative itch in my brain. As a neurodivergent person, seeing the quote unquote real world through the lens unlike any other is always going to be exciting to me. This was no exception. The inclusion of the fairy circle and superstition and the ominous figure force haunting a protagonist called to mind several horror short stories, like the ones written by M.R. James or Edgar Allan Poe. I feel like this story was perfectly tailored to me. The ambiguity was key in this story, in my opinion. The supernatural and the unknown walk hand in hand. It keeps the mysteries of the universe and beyond alive. I heavily disagree that this curse should have been explained to the audience. Some may have called it lazy writing. The unknown is a horror story's bread and butter. Letting the mind wander for weeks at a time about this story is most likely what RTD intended after all. Will the events of the story be relevant as the series progresses? Who knows? I completely agree with that. Exactly what we've said so far as well. Yeah. A major positive is of course Millie's portrayal of Ruby here. I was gripped as she's left to face the world again, seemingly abandoned, and I was pleased to see her take it in her stride initially, traveling to the village, heading back to home, pick herself up. I appreciate the strength of character and independence, which as the story went on seemed more and more like a mask or a shield. The explanation of Ruby's wound or abandonment was stellar. Everyone she'd grown close to or loved, locking her out, pushing her away, her guilt manifesting as we realize each person that locks her out was sent by Ruby to speak to the woman. I thought it was almost genius to have Ruby almost inflict the curse on herself, perhaps unknowingly, at least until the final act where she uses her curse for good against Roger Ap William. I've seen complaints online that this character arc from Ruby had come from nowhere. I'm sorry, but we all are seeing the same show, right? Ruby's debut episode has her calling upon the powers of Davina McCall to find her birth mother. The desperation in her interview, just wanting to know why she was abandoned at ETC. Then being heartbroken at her DNA leading her nowhere, getting no answers. Then every subsequent episode acting as building blocks to this arc, most significantly featuring abandoned children or broken families. Most striking being in Boom with Ruby's dismay of possibly having a family of her own. Who is my next of kin? The harrowing realization that she's now abandoning her own possible children at this very moment of time, and they'd never know how or why she'd left. Ruby's fear manifests perhaps the most overtly in this episode, almost quite too literally perhaps, but I think it just sits right for me. I have so much praise for this episode, but I have to throw out at least a negative or even a nitpick, genuinely. I feel this episode is a victim of the 45-minute syndrome, as coined by YouTuber Stu Bagful, in which things wrap up too soon. I can understand viewers' dismay at the resolution to the story. The Roger Ap William plotline felt somewhat jammed in. I appreciate it was mentioned by the Doctor early in the episode. I'm a fan of the Chekhov's gun narrative device after all, but still, it felt like the plot and the character had more potential and should have been given more time and care than what was given to us. Especially as in mine and several others' opinion, unresponsibly explored abuse / possible sexual abuse with Marty's character. Which such little time given to his thread, this felt like just an extra way to say, ooh, this bloke who wants to find nuclear missiles is a womanizing abuser too. He's really, really bad, just in case you didn't know. However, it was nice for Ruby to finally make a stand against such men, and there's a positive to this perhaps misguided plot point in that it could help inspire victims of abuse to relate and hopefully seek help. 73 yards wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but I'm glad for that. I appreciate the folk horror vibes, and as an experiment of character, this was just incredible. Lee's performance stands high as she shoulders the episode like Atlas holds the earth. My heart broke for Ruby so many times in this episode. She's firmly becoming a high favorite companion. The actual supernatural threat of the episode was greatly exceeded. I adored simply just observing the vigilant spirit entity. Looking at her movements, I felt incredibly uneasy, as perhaps it triggered a buried memory of having to endure Mr. Tumble, Justin Fletcher from CBeebies, as he taught BSL sign language for children. Ooh, don't step there, Doctor. As the figure struggled and caressing her palm, I could hear the ghostly echoes of, hello, hello, hello. How are you? Mr. Tumble's infamous theme song. I know that because I have children, Robin. Finally, my favorite aspect of this episode will be the ensuing speculation theories over the months, maybe hopefully years after it's been days since. I can't stop thinking about this episode. My theory is that Russell will tie too much of this story into Ruby's finale and too much will be explained. I wouldn't mind some explanation, but I fear he'll overdo it, especially in the two-part finale. I frankly really enjoy this episode. Seeing it on the first viewing, coming home after a night shift with the curtains drawn to avoid the 7 a.m. morning sunshine, and watching it with my mum, withdrawn from the real world, was a treat. She was also really gripped by the story, feeling unnerved, but also frustrated at the very opening, in her words. They need to stop stepping on shit. Sorry, Thomas's mum, yet again doing that voice for you. Needless to say, she was a fan of this episode, and it was great for her to begin to assemble the jigsaw that is Susan Twist's appearance. Oh, but it's the ambulance woman, she said while tapping my shoulder, pointing to the screen like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. My rating for this episode is about a solid 8.5, possibly a 9. Although, again, it's not perfect, and I'm worried that multiple rewatches may dilute the mystery of the story and the intrigue. The mark of a good, ambiguous, good ghost story is to be able to read, hear, watch it multiple times, and still be able to let the mind wander without having to too much answered. And now I present the thoughts of my mum. 7.5 was good, but left a lot of questions and is it truly a Doctor Who story episode, with about 10% worth of screen time for the Doctor? What did the woman say to everyone? And they need to start watching where they walk. Butterfly, snot, a landmine, a fairy ring. Let's play guess what they'll stand on next. Jonathan Groff. massive thanks to both of you again. You two and Star have made leaps and bounds of the podcast. I'm more than looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the episode. Thomas B. Beech, or some Thomas P. Beech, featuring Thomas's mum, Lisa Marie, as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Thomas. As always,
thank you.
Beautiful analysis of the episode. I really think it just goes to show it's almost as if Thomas is a very good fan writer.
Almost as if, yeah. But they've all been great responses. And one thing I want to bring up is that while we're both being so enthusiastic about this new series and giving it so much praise, which is well deserved, I want to let the listeners know that if you listening have ever thought that an episode wasn't your cup of tea or had issues, but you felt you couldn't address them out of fear that you would be ridiculed for not liking something that everyone else likes or something, actually, we want to hear your thoughts. Like, this is a safe place for those discussions. And if you ever feel like you want to contribute, you want to say your piece and be actually, I want to bring this up because people haven't talked about this, or I didn't like it for this reason. And it'd just be really fascinating to hear those points. Everyone's been given wonderful points already, but let's open up that discussion for other things.
And there's one more as well. This is where I'm going to cut to a voice clip being sent in by our old friend, Master Stan, and fellow panelist, Catherine Wheeler.
Hello, podcast listeners. I'm recording this quietly because I'm on a train, but my thoughts on 70 Yards as a resident local Master Stan. No Master references here, but I did think it was a solid. I'm going to say, do I put it at an 8? Because it was really good. It was really good. But I don't know whether, and this is a problem I had for the whole series, I don't know whether the broadcast time is affecting my watching. It so is. Like, there's no question it's affecting my watching experience. 8 or a 9? 8 or a 9, I'd say. Good natural dialogue. Nice setting, love Wales. I love it when they go awfully dark with it and horror. I love the bit at the end when she's in bed and she wakes up as the woman. That was terrifying. That was god awful. I got like chills. insane. The direction was insane, and I met the director panel. He's really cool, and yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Kat. Robin, I think it's time we head on over to the Cannon Buster.
Cannon Buster.
Sorry, I was trying to be creepy there when I said that.
Oh, I was just going for groovy.
So, Cannon Busters today, Robin. I thought I'd go to a story set in Wales, or supposedly set in Wales as well. It was very difficult to find a similar one with a similar story featuring something following the Doctor. But I managed to find one actually, and it is also supposedly set in Wales. Robin, did you ever partake in any of the lockdown Doctor Who tweet-alongs?
I didn't. No, I was very bad. I didn't properly use my Twitter account until years later, which was why I was very behind on all the Twitter news during the start of our podcast. So no,
Well,
why'd you
did
ask?
have you catched up on any of the webcasts or little mini Doctor Who episodes that they did for those ones there? Things like Farewell, Sarah Jane, or I'm just trying to think of other ones, but have you caught up on any of those by any chance?
I have not. No, that's a bit of homework for myself.
Absolutely, particularly, my goodness, Farewell, Sarah Jane. Well, this one is called The Genuine Article.
Ooh, okay.
So this was the webcast that went with the tweet along for Love and Monsters.
Okay. All right.
So this episode, this short little episode was written by Don G. Martin, who we know very well. Friend of
Yes.
ours, friend of the show. Directed by Will Grantham, who actually was the designer of the Azorbiloff back in the day. Because guess what, Robin? This is a Love and Monsters sequel.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So, in what
Okay.
he believes to be Cardiff, the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, has been chased to a back alley by the Absorbaloff, who reveals that he is in fact on board a ship in the orbit of Earth. And yeah, it's actually the Absorbaloff's son. So here you go. Imagine
So,
that,
so,
Robin.
so,
This
so what you're
means,
saying?
yes, it does mean the Absorbaloff fucks.
It means that he has a love life. Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yes,
But
yeah, no. Yes, that's a good way of saying it, Robbie. Yes, yeah. But if you ask me, he's all off fucks, yes. So yeah,
Oh no.
I don't want to spoil anything else from the episode other than Robin, there's more Absorbaloff content.
Oh God, poor Love and Monsters.
Yes. And
Oh.
it's a funny little episode. It's John Coleshaw voicing the Absorbaloff in this, obviously not Peter Kay, and excellent Doctor impressionist Elliot Crosby voicing the Elliot Crossley, I should say, not Crosby, voicing the 10th Doctor in this, who does a very fantastic job. Yeah, so there you go, Robin. I'm going to send you that after this and make you watch it.
I'm gonna have to watch this now.
Yeah. To be fair, you
Oh my
really
God.
should. And if anyone else hasn't either, you should definitely check up and catch up with all that content that was released during lockdown, because there's some fantastic stuff there. And we're not just talking about Jodie Whittaker, doing a little scene from her cupboard. We're meaning things that were released specifically to go the episode, and they're beautiful. But still, I'm hoping that we'll finish this episode and Star will pop back up. But
Yeah, I hope so too. It's really quiet without her. There's less 80s and 70s music about.
yeah, and also I've realized, I've said a few times, cut stuff out or put stuff here, but well, she can't do that. She's not around, couldn't she? So
No.
Well, I'm sorry, everyone, if this has been a very sparse episode and what have you. But hopefully things going forward will be back on track. But I've been Jack.
I've been Robin.
This has been an awful lot of running. Keep running.
Keep winning.
I'm sorry it took so long. I tried so hard. What else could I do? It took all this podcast, all these minutes, all these long minutes. And listen to me. I was so young. Hello and welcome to an awful lot of running, a Doctor Who podcast.
Woo! It's good to be with you too. Especially out here on this lovely Welsh coastline.
Just look at it.
The walks and the water, it never ends.
The war between the land and the sea.
See, friends?
Jack, no.
So, who have we got in the audience section tonight?
Oh, the usual suspects, Ewan, Joshua, the fun lot. There was a team B something, but we'll skip over that one. Terrifying one he is. Most dangerous fan writer in history.
Hold on. Who's that?
Who?
Over there.
Where?
There was a bloke.
Well, they're not there anymore.
But there was! There was a bloke!
He was just standing there.
Maybe he was recording something?
Alright, you two, alright.
Oh, no.
Don't step!
No! Oh, I almost broke that. Careful. Oh, honey, what a beautiful thing.
What is it?
It's the aforementioned audience section. Man, it's so well organised. Thoughts and views on this week's episode, just here at the end of the land.
What do they say?
Oh, no. Better not. We'll get to that section eventually. Let's give them their respect and leave them for their section, Jack. Let them wait for recording. Like your mysterious man.
He was there.
Uh-huh. And we are here. Come on, you two, there's a pub around here we'll record in.
I could do with that.
So you two been here before?
Oh, just the once. Well, this part of Wales at least.
Same, actually.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh, when was it?
It must have been...
I can't think.
I suppose it must have been... now.